For the average person, their largest single asset is their home.
Which is why it's so important to stay on top of routine home maintenance to protect that investment.
So today we're here with John Phillips of Iron Horse Home Inspections, and he's going to be walking us through some typical home inspection items that he finds when he does his home inspections. So John, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. I've been in business for about 6.5 years, and I got into it from doing marketing for a lot of building products, but I wanted to get out into the field and actually help people. So I'm here today to help go over some things that we might look at during the spring and how to take care of your prime investment.
So can you tell us, like when you're doing exterior inspections, what are some things that you see that homeowners neglect?
Some of the prime things that I see is that we're not taking care of the water runoff from the roof. And whether that's the condition of our downspouts, where the extensions terminate, whether they're clean or not. Because we get a lot of debris and what have you within those gutters during the year. And I always recommend having them cleaned in the fall, after the leaves fall, and then throughout the winter they build up with a lot of debris. And to have not just only the gutters, but the downspouts cleaned as well.
Okay.
And that helps us make sure that we get the water away from the house to prevent any kind of foundation or flat work issues, such as settling and cracking.
Are there any issues if they don't clean out their gutters, like with their roof lines?
Sure. If you have enough debris within the gutters and we clog up the downspouts, we will fill that gutter full of water, and that allows the water to come back up underneath the first layer of shingles and start soaking our roof decking, which then we get water and moisture intrusion within the roof. We can get mold issues. We can get problems with the pests, and you also just basically start deteriorating your roof structure. Kind of continue. It's nice that we've got some precipitation that's going to help us today. In dealing with that, we might check with water and getting away from the house is our grading and our slope. But one of the things is window wells. And the debris that we might have built up in those, if we don't have covers, it's really important to get the debris out, because any water that gets in there can fill up the window well, and you can have a leak in through the window sill.
Okay.
So
what do you think about like those plastic covers? Are those
I like
ideas?
them, and I recommend them.
Okay.
Because it helps prevent any moisture and also pests. And when I say pests, it doesn't necessarily mean bad. I've had clients that have had bunnies get trapped in them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So bunnies or raccoons or anything like that, we want to try to keep out of there.
Okay. So is there anything else on the exterior that you would like to mention?
Well, while you're looking at the gutters and the grading and the window wells, take a peek at your siding, your veneer stonework or brickwork, because all of this, as far as the building envelope, is our first defense against moisture.
Right.
And it's just about making sure that, if we have paint that's cracking or peeling, we do want to address that, because that is our first layer of defense against water. We want water to shed down and over and away from the house.
Right.
And it's just about checking the mortar around. I mean, this is all in really good shape. But you'll see in older homes that you might have the mortar's kind of cracked. You might want to have that retucked so we don't get moisture in there, and then it freezes in the wintertime, and then you start getting spalling and breaking of the brickwork.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the things to look on the outside of the house, once or twice a year.
Okay. So let's head on inside and we can meet with Zach and Kathy and do some things on the interior.
Sure.
So John, what kind of maintenance is necessary for a gas fireplace?
So one of the first things that might be an indication that we have to have some things addressed on our gas fireplace is going to be the flame pattern. The nice and blue one that we see here is very efficient. It's going to be putting out a lot of heat, and we're going to have an exhaust flue that is basically really clean. When we start having a yellow flame, we're going to have more soot build up, and we might have some staining outside from the vent. And that means we have to have that adjusted. Okay. Another indication is when you start seeing a cloudy glass.
Oh, yes.
Okay. The combustion products, one of the major things is going to be water vapor. And you put that with a little bit of carbon, and eventually it's going to stick to the inside of that glass. Okay. But another thing from that I've seen is I will always take off the bottom where our controls are and recommend vacuuming that out. because we're using convection to move air through the bottom and out the top, and our pet dander and a pet hair can really build up in there.
Okay.
So I always recommend, before the winter season comes, is to give that a good cleaning. That's something that you can do yourself.
Absolutely.
But let the professionals do. If you see burn problems or it's having problems starting, that kind of stuff, then I would have a professional gas fireplace contractor come out and take a look at that.
Very good. What about wood burning? There still are folks that have wood burning fireplaces. What kind of maintenance do you recommend for that?
One of the primary things is when there's no fire going is look at the brickwork in behind. If you have any, and this is for older ones, there's all different types of wood burning stoves, but the ones that have bricks on the inside, if there are cracks in the mortar and the bricks, that means we're allowing hot gases and toxic gases into the chimney chase, which could come into the living space.
Okay.
So always take a look at how your brickwork looks.
Okay.
And then before the winter season comes, I do recommend once a year having a chimney sweep.
Okay.
And that gets rid of the creosote out of the chimney flue and the flue liner, which if we don't, that can build up and become a fire hazard, right?
Yes. It can also get rid of raccoons, which I which I had sitting on the top of a fire. So when we had the chimney sweep come, it's like you've got some baby raccoons down there. So
that brings up a really good point. Is outside is to look at the condition of your chimney flue liners that comes out of the chase and make sure that you have a rain cap and basically a spark screen, right? That screen is what prevents the pests from coming in.
Yes.
And that way you don't get strange noises at night.
Yes. Well,
exactly.
Well, I'm glad that came up. Thank you, John.
So what do you want to do next?
Let's go into the kitchen.
Great, sounds good.
So John, we're in the kitchen. Dishwashers. What can we do for maintenance on a dishwasher?
Well, one of the main things that I see that happen that a lot of people don't take care of is that in the bottom is usually a removable filter or a debris trap. And in order to make sure that we have a good flow of water and a good draining, is to take that out occasionally, maybe once every 3 months or 6 months, and give it a good cleaning, right? And then on top of that, it's really just keep an eye out for any leaks that might be happening, because they don't have to be major, right? If you start seeing a little bit of your flooring starting to curl up a little bit, or it smells a little bit damp, that means we might have a leak within the drain pipe that's connecting on the backside. And of course, when you look under the sink to grab whatever you're doing, just take a cursory look and to make sure that we don't have any plumbing leaks under there that are happening. Because unfortunately, plumbing leaks do happen.
Water is an enemy.
Yes, it is.
When it comes to appliances. So anything with regard to refrigerator, keeping it working more efficiently?
Yeah, as always with any of these is to follow the manufacturer recommendations. But the way the cooling system works on refrigerators, it's best if we keep the dust and debris back behind it, down by the compressor and its coils, where the refrigerant goes through, clean and vacuumed out. And that'll have it last a lot longer and work more efficiently. It won't run as much, etc.
You know, in these newer appliances, even if you don't have a newer one, they roll so easily. So it's really not as difficult to clean behind them. But I think a good idea just to keep them dust free.
Indeed.
On the floor level.
And then if you don't have one, if it's an older one, you can always put a little piece of cardboard down over your flooring before you slide it out. So you don't, whether it's hardwood or your vinyl or your tile, to make sure that you don't damage that when you do that.
The floors. Well, John, that information was so very helpful. I think Zach's in the basement, so maybe you should head on down there and take a look at the furnace and hot water heater and everything else.
Great, thanks. I'll do that.
All right, John, here we are in the bowels of the house, everybody's favorite utility room. And I know that a lot of our clients at homeowners, for them, the furnace and the water heater are two of the biggest things that they look out for home maintenance and concerns over that. So maybe let's start with the water heater and talk a little bit about maintenance around that.
Sure. The first thing I want to talk about on the water heater is going to be the fact that in Colorado we have hard water.
Yes, we do.
And so hard water has a propensity to build up debris and build up a sediment layer within the tank. And that is the one thing that kills them quicker. They last between 8 and 12 years, but if you take care of it, it can last longer.
Yeah.
So I always recommend doing yearly maintenance on it. Now, this is something, if you're comfortable with it, you can do yourself. If you're not comfortable with it, hire a plumber and learn kind of how they do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the first things that we want to do once a year is down here we see the drain.
Yeah.
We can use that with a short garden hose, and I go into a white bucket, a clean white bucket, because then I can see when the debris, the sediment clears up.
That's
right?
a good tip, yeah.
And if I don't have a drain in the basement, I can just take the bucket and go to a toilet and slowly pour it in and come back and allow that water to flush until it clears up.
That makes sense. You know, I prefer the hard water over that slimy, soft water that some places have.
I agree.
You know, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. But then you can also just do a few things to keep an eye on. One thing that I do, I don't test the temperature pressure relief valve, but just spin it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. If that's not free and clear, we know we might have some of that sediment, calcium buildup within this valve.
Okay.
Right. And this is a safety thing.
Yes, it is.
And then also you can just keep an eye on it and look at for any rust signs within within the flue pipe. All right, because we can have some condensation come back, and there are times if we have a condensation problem with that, it can rust this out, and that's a safety issue. Right.
Understood.
And then the other thing that no one ever really seems to do, and I have to admit, me included, it skips my mind, is that in the tank is something called an anode rod. It is it is a sacrificial rod made of metals that will basically corrode before the tank does. And if we were to change that out every 3 to 4 years, we would then extend the life of that water heater a lot longer. But it's something that I think all of us just really don't think about. And then only one other thing is keep the bottom clear of stuff. Okay? Because this is a fire-breathing dragon, and it needs combustion air. And that combustion air comes through the little grills on the bottom. And if those seem to be, if you have a bunch of stuff around it, or if they look like they have a lot of dust collected on it, vacuum that off.
Okay.
Right? To make sure that we have enough combustion air so it burns efficiently.
Okay. Great tips. One other thing I see sometimes, you have a pan in the bottom where it sets in. Is that something that's recommended for a water heater? Yeah,
I recommend it. We're in a basement, and I think that from what I can tell from some of the piping, we're really pretty close to what the floor drain is.
Yeah.
But a lot of homes have their water heater, let's say, on the first floor or a second floor, or right? And so it's in a closet. Those really need to have a drip pan.
Yeah.
Because if it leaks at that point, then we're destroying floor.
Of course.
Right? And we're ruining subfloor and any kind of floor covering that we have.
Yeah.
So that should have a drip pan. And if you can't have a drain from that to go anywhere, put a moisture alarm in. And then that will beep at you if your tank is ever leaking.
Yeah, you can take care of it.
And by the way, which brings me back, if you ever see this discharge pipe, if you ever see that dripping, that's another sign that we're having a failure of this TPR valve. Okay. Call a plumber. Have them swap that out. Have them look at it.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that's a functional thing, and it's not supposed to just drip.
Yeah.
Right. That's a problem if it's dripping.
Okay. Makes sense. That's great. Great information. All right. Well, let's move on to the furnace.
Okay.
So what we, I know, I change my filter out, probably not as often as I'm supposed to. Like most people, it's kind of like flossing. You think you do it more than you actually do it. So tell us, what we can, expect around maintenance with the furnace.
Well, you named the number one thing, and that's changing out that filter. Now they recommend a lot of manufacturers say once a month. I think you can use your own judgment. Start it once a month, and if you pull it out and it just has a light dust covering, try 2 months.
Okay.
Right? Or try 3 months. I'm at about 3 months, but I don't have any pets. Okay. Pet hair and all that kind of stuff, and I don't have grown kids anymore. I just am not collecting as much on that filter as I would be if I had pets or conditions change. So But it's really important for the health of the furnace to do that. It's not just your air filtration, okay? It can reduce the amount of air that is going over the heat exchanger, and it will reduce the efficiency of the furnace. And if it gets really clogged, I'm sure you've seen some on some of the homes that your buyers and the inspectors looked at it, and it's just cake.
Oh yeah. Probably been years.
I bet those furnaces are short cycling. In other words, when we're not getting enough air across that heat exchanger, it heats up too much. There's a switch in here that senses that and will shut it off. Okay? And when we stress the heat exchanger, hot, cold, we're more likely to have cracks in the heat exchanger.
And it's going to shorten the life of the furnace too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just a simple thing of changing that filter out. And it can be, you'll have to look at your unit. A lot of them are going to be basically down here, but some of them are on the return plenum, the little sheet,
Yeah, you have to pull up.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, with filters, do you recommend, there are some of the real basic ones, and then there's some that are just, meant to, eliminate the flow of any allergens or things like that. What do you recommend?
The problem with eliminating the flow of allergens, you're also eliminating the flow of air. I recommend going with the cheapest filters and changing them more often. High, and they call it, depending on the company, some of them, the most common term is MERV, okay? And the higher that number is, the more occluded it already is, and it's going to trap a lot of small particles, okay? But now we're not allowing enough air to go over the heat exchanger, or in the summertime, the coils in your AC
cooling. Sure.
Okay? So even if you were to look up on your manufacturers, I haven't seen one that says to go above MERV 5. I myself buy the cheapest ones. Okay. And change them more often.
Awesome. Great tip. All right, John, we're here at the washer and dryer, and I know there's maintenance here, and I know that you're going to teach me something, because I'm pretty sure that I'm not maintaining my washer and dryer as I really need to. So give us some tips. Let's start with the washer.
Okay. Let's start, which is the washer? That would be this one.
Here we go.
So specifically on the front load washers is to look for a buildup of microbial growth or mold, okay? The older models are gonna have some issues with draining that out, right? And so they would build up the mold. But you can look up online, in this case Samsung, and they will give you instructions on how to clean and sanitize that out. Also on these is gonna be a filter that you should take out and clean quarterly. Okay.
Quarterly. Okay. So every 3 months.
Every time I give you is going to be a recommended.
Yeah.
Right. If you do it once a year, good. Okay.
That's more than probably most.
Right. More than most.
Yeah.
Right. And those two things, and then another thing is, if you have the rubber hoses, check on those quarterly. Okay. Those do kind of get embolisms, okay? They will blow out. The braided hoses are better.
Braided hoses are better. Okay.
Right. But I'm not saying you have to change that out.
Yeah.
But it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great to know. All right.
So,
okay. Well, then how about the dryer?
The main thing on the dryer is going to be making sure that your dryer vent and duct is clean of lint.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that something I should be checking on monthly, quarterly? I mean, just depends,
I would have it cleaned at least once a year.
At least once a year.
Yep.
Okay. And that's something we could do at home?
Yes, there are professionals that will do it, but they do have tools at your big boxes that just hook to a cordless drill or a drill, and as a brush that you can go down and bring out any lint. Okay.
Okay.
But the thing is if we keep our lint screen clean,
yes,
right? We'll see where this one is. If we keep this cleaned out on a regular basis and keep the lint down, that buildup is not as big of a problem as it can be.
Yeah, that is something I do. I try to do after every drying cycle.
Perfect.
To clear that out.
Perfect.
Yep. Okay.
And then the other thing is just to make sure, if you have any lint starting to happen on the back, that means our connections aren't good.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so we want to make sure that that's all of our connections to the main vent from the dryer is nice and sealed. And I really recommend do not use the plastic flexible ones. Okay.
No on plastic flex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because those plastic flexes, when they're bent, right, and trying to hook up to the both thing, they can trap a lot of lint. And now we're starting to build up heat, and we can create fires that way.
Okay.
Okay. So I recommend using a UL listed connector made out of metal. It can still be flexible, okay? But don't use the plastic ones.
All right, John, thank you so much for being here today. We all learned a lot, how to better maintain our home. You know, I think it's easy when we're living in our homes to just get, busy with life and forget about the things that are important to make sure that we stay ahead of issues that can happen in our house.
Well, you're most welcome. I enjoy it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thanks, John. Yeah.
You bet.